And how big are these capital ships? How far apart are the reactors?
Well, if disabling one will buy 4 hours, you should be able to make it to the next one within that time span.
That's true. And
Unless they're already in
disabling
range of the
another one
planet.
while they're trying to switch to backup power could cause even more issues in the system.
But will disabling the flagship really stop the other ships from beginning the attack?
Well, if they won't even be able to they shouldn't even be able to communicate with the ship. It should go dark.
What if they have personal communicators that are powered by the ship's reactor?
Well, the question is, how far can those reach, and how far are the ships apart in their formations? Do they have long-range communication devices aside from those connected to the ship? And setting that aside, why wouldn't they stop to deal with their commander? I mean, would he want them to go ahead without him?
Well, I think at the very least, disabling the power would slow them down, so that sounds like a good idea for almost any of our plans other than stealthily trying to impersonate him.
I mean,
If
another problem
anything, it
with
would at
the
least give.
stealth plan is, can we even capture him without causing a disturbance? Which may be doubtful.
And if nothing else, my being there ready to disable the power at a moment's notice would at least give you guys a chance to do something to help you with your plan if things go wrong. And it's an option. It's there. Gives you more time to accomplish your plans. But I think outright deception, aside from challenging him to take over his position, is not really feasible.
It would be simplest if we could just convince him to call off the attack, although I fear that that will not be feasible.
Well, definitely are all thinking in the right direction. Plan with a small few of you guys needs to be a small few plan. Basically, what this is coming down to is either a con job or some sort of feat of strength.
That sounds about right.
Well, if it's a con job you're wanting, I might be able to help. I've done more than a few in my day. If it's a feat of strength, now that's more up to Kaya's avenue. We'll do what we can to help. We want this to succeed. But you need to come up with something solid. It's okay to have A's and B's and C plans, but you need to have an A one. And I suggest you come up with it rather quickly. By the end of this day, we're going to be in their space, or at least close enough where we could be in their space.
I'd rather put my vote towards deception than con job. To me, it feels a little bit better. That's just me, though.
Con job first, feat of strength, back up.
I think that sounds reasonable.
If we can only get onto one ship, we can't really do the trader kind of con job.
Well, I don't have high hopes for that working anyways.
And since we have to remove the admiral, the con job, well, it'll get rid of the current problem. But if we leave him on the ship to be found, we might have to do a con saying, I've been summoned, like telling the admiral saying that he's been summoned somewhere, like by someone that he needs to go. So he'll take like a personal shuttle or whatever. And the rest of the fleet will continue on, so they won't notice his absence.
I think that sounds reasonable.
Is there any way we could more undermine his leadership?
I don't think we have the time.
There has to be a better way than something. I don't know what though.
Not unless you can conjure up at least 200 Jedi legions.
I
Give
think
you a look.
if we can hold, you just have to believe me when I say this, there is a Republic fleet coming. If we can hold them up for enough hours, then they could get here and stop this.
Well,
I thought Governor Lovelace said that the nearest ships were like 3 weeks away.
That was back before we, left for Korriban. They might have only been
Which
a
is
week,
only
but
like
maybe
a
they
week and a
managed.
half ago.
Maybe something changed.
What do you mean, maybe? Can you guarantee that they're coming?
Yes.
when?
So then it wouldn't be a maybe. How do you know?
I can't tell you. I can't just promise it.
The ceiling looks nice.
Because you're gonna need to make a deception check.
Okay. Nope.
You feel Kalani and Shialu's eyes burning into you for a questioning answer. You guys, there is something strange. There's like now that you're looking at him, there's a little bit of an aura that you haven't noticed before around Pakaz. It's not dangerous, but it's just a subtle glow that if you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't notice it. But now that you're looking at him and searching for an answer, you can see it. It's at this point the gambler interrupts. Well, look, Squid, if you've got an answer to the problems, I suggest you bring it up. Kind of withholding valuable information here isn't going to help planning it now, is it?
Oh, I've told you the information. We just have to stop the fleet for
How
enough time.
far? How long? How far away is the Republic?
Hours. I don't know more than that.
Hours is very vague.
Indeed, but if I can stop the flagship, if we can cause confusion, if we can sneak on board and just shut things down.
Alright, so we disabled the flagship. What do we do then? Try to keep it disabled until the Republic gets here?
Yes, well, I think what we should do is after disabling it, we start attacking people in the corridors. Anyone we can find, we take them out. It will cause confusion and fear, and this should hopefully cause enough confusion and fear, as long as the power is off, to slow things down for the Republic fleet.
Yeah, probably should have used different words, lad. You sounded like a Sith there for a second.
It was a
They're
very
in it.
Sith-like attitude.
They're enemy soldiers. This is war. If some of them have to die to save the lives of the innocent, then so be it.
Do the ends justify the means, or do the means have to abide by the end?
They are not in it. These people are not innocent. They're part of a fleet going to commit massive amount of murder.
And yet, if we kill them, we would be doing the same thing that they set out to do.
No, we would not.
Casualties of
are-
war.
Well,
are
what
one
happens
thing.
when the Republic fleet arrives and we are hoping that the Imperial fleet is destroyed?
They will all die
It's-
anyways.
They'll all die by someone's hands regardless.
This is war. You have to kill people in war. It's sad, but unless they
Yeah,
decide to lay down
they-
their arms and stop seeking to kill innocent people, then they have to die. If they cannot be persuaded otherwise, they must die.
As much as I regret it, these are soldiers on their ship. This isn't just. This isn't like on Korriban where there were civilians.
If that's what you'll decide to do, alright. I will help do what I can, but I will not commit wholesale slaughter. You realize what you are planning to do, what you are saying, literally got my fiancée killed.
What?
Because cocks his head.
You know that whole thing in the cube about me trying to disarm a bomb as far as you could tell, right?
Because
I don't-
nods.
I don't know how much you could sell, but I'll put it this way. My fiancée was in that room, was on a ship with a bomb on it that blew up while she was on holocall with me because I wouldn't give up an investigation. In other words, they did whatever it took to stop me from investigating. You guys are doing whatever it takes to stop them so the Republic will step in.
No, we are not.
Whatever
We're
it
fighting in
takes.
a war.
We're not
We
doing.
are no different than soldiers in this case.
We're fighting soldiers, not civilians. We're not
You know,
doing.
how about we try to avoid
whatever.
any sort of confrontations in the corridors, because I don't feel like getting hunted down by the entire personnel of the flagship. You know, sabotaging other systems is not a bad idea, though.
Yes, but you see, the issue here is stealth either way. Ideally, we kill people and sow confusion and sneak away before anyone else shows up. As long as the ship is out of power, there will be limited communication only between personal communicators. Even with an effective chain of command, there won't be a red alert or anything. There will just be frantic communications. And if no one manages to report back before they kill and all they find is bodies, it will only sow more confusion.
Well, if we could somehow do a con and get the Admiral to say, tell the fleet that, well, now that they got mechanical, they're going to be behind schedule and that they need to move on to the next objective. And then somehow sabotage the communications relay so they can't double check with anybody except on board their ship, but they can't communicate with the other ships. That might also buy us some confusion time.
And if the power is down on our ship or on the flagship, they might not be expected to have enough communications to send an audio message or a hollow message. It could just be some sort of electronic signal that we could send that would explain the power difficulties and the instructions.
Well, if they have long-range communicators, they should be able to communicate in between the ships. By
But they
voice.
might not.
Considering it's a military vessel, I didn't think of it before, but there should be many of those. Setting that aside, they might suspect something if there's just a strange order given.
Well, I think the best option then will be to sneak around and continue disabling the power until the Republic fleet arrives. Although I don't think that we should go around killing people, because what would killing people on board one of the ships out of 15 really accomplish? I think it'd be best to stay as stealthy as possible and continue draining the power from around the ship.
And that's best. I am the best person for that job. It would leave you guys without anything to do. The more
Well, we
people
would
there are,
help
the
you.
harder it is to sneak around.
What if you need assistance?
No, I can do it myself. Unless you guys want to go to a separate generator and destroy it manually.
Or we could
Perhaps
try hacking into their systems.
If the
There's
power's down, I
opportunity.
don't think that's going to really work.
there's opportunity here for a twofold con. If one of you, say a team or you, want to go in and disrupt the power, that will be one part of confusion. Another would be to take out the Admiral and impersonate him or convince him or whatever it is you were planning on doing. Now, between a confusing Admiral and power that's being disabled, that will put any ship into a bit of confusion for at least a little while. That should give you time to decide, based on how events unfold, what your next step is. Remember, even though the Sith is a well-oiled machine and we are very capable in war, we're still very structured. Without leadership, it will throw the fleet into a bit of chaos. And communication, if you're able to knock that out, if it's not possible, they won't be able to recover, not quickly. And the other admirals and captains will not be willing to step into the shoes of the old admiral very quickly. That sort of thing gets you into trouble.
Yes,
And if we can
especially
somehow
if he's
send out
alive
some
and
sort
they
of
don't know it.
confusing message from the Admiral, it seems from the Admiral right before we disable the communications, they'll have no way to check and verify, so the rest of the fleet might be even more confused.
Would there be a way to shut down the communication systems on all the ships from a single ship and then before we cut the power?
There might
Or
be a
maybe
way to
scramble
jam it.
something? Yes, but how would we jam it if we're going to cut the power on the ship that we're on and the only jammers we might have access to might be on that ship?
I'm honestly quite surprised you haven't asked me questions like this so far. I just so happen to have the specs of the entire ship on hand.
Well,
Well, that would
I was
certainly
going
be
to ask you
useful.
about that after we came up with a plan. But yes,
As far as my calculations, with a crew of about 5,224, there are 48 Sith interceptors and 2 shuttles. Now, these fighters run on their own power. You could disable the ship, you could disable the large ship, you could hook up the interceptors' communications into a giant sort of jamming beacon. It wouldn't have to be anything, just an annoying sound or something that would send a signal straight out. It would sound like something wrong with communications from the ship's end, while at the same time preventing the ship from communicating.
that's good. The fighters probably have more powerful broadcasting equipment than any handheld communicators.
Handheld
It would-
communicators won't go through the ship's hull plating.
Even long-range ones that can communicate over the planet, over an entire planet.
Entire planet doesn't have Durasteel wrapped around it in several layers.
True. Well, then I think the issue here is who's going to rig up the fighters and what order are we going to do this in? Cut the power and then rig up the fighters? It would help to have darkness and confusion on our side when this happens, but then you run into the issue of some communications getting out first. Of course, all that would get out is that there was a power failure. They're fixing things.
If I can do things from their computer, I can do it. Mechanical, I'm not as good as you are, but if I can set it up from the computer itself, I can do it.
Before the fighters launch, they're all connected to a single computer. It's used for diagnostics and such. It wouldn't be a simple matter, but you might be able to upload some kind of virus or tap into the communication system and hook them all up at once. Your best bet is to get them when they're all still hooked up for maintenance.
Yeah,
Yeah, I could
I
help
could
with
do
that.
that.
Good. Then
So that
what's
would be before the main power is cut. Since the connecting computer would be involved.
Exactly. You'd have to do that before. Once the signal was sent out, then the ships should be able to send it out automatically once the protocol is installed. Then you'd want to take out the reactor, and not shortly after would you want to take on the Admiral. You'd want to do it in such a way, though, that it wasn't suspicious right at first, otherwise they might lock him down. You want to do it maybe with a team very close at hand near the Admiral.
So what I'm thinking we do is I go to deal with the generators, Elon goes to deal with the computer, and the rest of the team get close to the Admiral in preparation. Thoughts?
Would you agree to not run around killing people after you've disabled the generator?
I'm going to be busy getting to the next generator to disable it. That was just my idea to give you guys a job while I was disabling generators, while still causing more confusion.
Well, then I think that this sounds like a good plan.
Well, finally.
Wait, so would Alon be going alone to take down the computer system?
That sounds like a bad idea.
What if I
it's
go
just
with
me,
him?
If it's just me, I should be fine. I've infiltrated a few places before. It's not as difficult as one would think it to be.
But you'll need time at the computer and you won't be able to keep watch.
True. No offense, Armored Man, but you're not exactly subtle. If you don't mind, I'd be happy to accompany you, Ayland.
As you wish.
I know something of con artistry.
Of course.
Yeah, and then I'll go with them if we can get the Admiral locked in some sort of room. We can make up a story that the power shortage somehow malfunctioned the door so it won't open, and he can only communicate via text on the computer system. And that might buy us some time as well. And we could lock a door, take him to a different room, and make them all believe he's in one room where we're actually in another. Or in a shuttle ready to fly out. Of course, that depends on us capturing him quietly.
That could be difficult if he's on board the bridge.
I wonder if it would be possible to fake some sort of incoming communication where he would want to take it in his quarters. Lure him to his quarters alone. Be waiting for him right when the power gets cut. Grab him in the darkness. Sabotage the door. Take him somewhere else. Or if we can just communicate via text, we can eliminate him right there and not have to worry about it.
Or we could not do that.
So you would rather take him with us?
Yes.
That's going to make stealth nearly impossible.
If the power's down by that point. Also, he probably will know things about the fleet that none of us know.
He also is Dakaya's master and probably at least as powerful as her, maybe more. Dragging him around might be rather difficult.
That's why I need to take him by surprise. I don't plan on letting him... If we're taking him with us, he will not be conscious.
But then he's no use for information. If that's what... Was that not what you were interested in?
Wait,
Well,
wait, out of
if we
character.
do the
Wait,
calm
is
this
the
way-
Admiral Dakaya's master?
Wasn't he?
No, he's her superior militarily, but he has no force abilities that you know of or that she's mentioned.
Okay, that was my mistake then. Pretend that that didn't happen.
Well, if we remove him and make everyone think that he's locked in his quarters, he doesn't need to be conscious.
Why not just kill him?
Because we should not take any life lightly. It's not necessary to kill him.
Yeah, we'll deal with that after, on a situational basis. If he tries anything, I will kill him. Other than
The
that,
fleet's going
he's
to be
unconscious.
blown up by the Republic fleet. They're all going to die anyways.
Unless they
Well,
retreat after seeing the
yeah,
Republic
they
fleet
could
and reach the
retreat.
planet alone without conflict.
They're not going to retreat while their flagship is powered down and unable to respond. They're going to try and defend it so it can power up and they can all retreat together. And by that
So some
time,
ships
the
could
fleet will
still
overwhelm
survive.
them.
But regardless of whether or not that happens,
Either
Remind,
way,
would
we're
it be
allowing
possible-
military assets to return to the Sith, which I would think that some of you being for the Republic would want not to happen.
Our goal isn't to kill people, it's to save New Thalarin.
There is a war.
anyway, Ramai, would it be possible to somehow write some code to, while Alon is running the interface, also simulate some sort of incoming message from maybe some sort of superior, so that he would go to his quarters to take a message?
Possible. What do you think, Dakaya? Maybe a ghost message from this supposedly dead scout might be enough? She nods. Perhaps it might send him a bit of a shock.
So then we wouldn't even have to do some sort of virus. You could just relay a message using whatever channels you were using before.
It's possible. Ramai knows how to encode a signal. It would be simple for me to simply make some mention of that it was me and that I had something to relay to him of importance. That would be enough to send him to his quarters.
Yeah, because I don't want to take him on the bridge. That might get messy if we can avoid it, because then we can maintain a subterfuge that he's stuck inside his quarters, while we can in fact be roaming the ship, if I can sabotage the door correctly.
And additionally, if Takai's purpose was to scout out the defenses and such, and vulnerabilities of the colony, she could say something about an important discovery about the colony's defensive capabilities. And then when the commander goes to take the message, maybe that might cause additional hesitation on board the bridge or something, if they think that the colony is well defended.
The spirits. Sith are naturally superstitious. Mention of the spirits might be enough to make them hesitate.
Excellent. So, well, where would the best place to sneak us in then, if we are going to his quarters, the reactor room, and the fighter bay?
You need to decide how to split yourselves up.
Well, I think Prakaz wanted to go by himself to sabotage the reactor. Elon and Ramai were going to go do the fighter bay, and I think everyone else is going to go deal with the Admiral.
That's what it sounds like.
And we're
If
still
a lot
trying
of our,
to.
if a lot of our plan rests on the success of each team, it might be good to have at least 2 people in each group, although that would hinder Picasso's stealth. I think it could also help him if he runs into difficulties.
Wait, what?
What happens if you run into more than you can handle, Picasso? And then the ship's power doesn't go down, then our plan is ruined.
Wait, what about me? I'm going to sneak off alone and disable generators.
But if you encounter heavy resistance, you might need backup.
If I encounter resistance, then the entire plan falls apart.
Yeah, that's why you need backup.
No, if I need backup, then we failed.
Not necessarily, because if you can shut down one generator, or even if someone can defend you long enough to do it, and if we've already shut down communications, it won't matter. Anyone on any other ship will just be aware that there was some sort of power malfunction, and the plan remains intact.
But if even a single communication gets out, if any security feed picks up that there's a fight going on near the reactors,
Well, wouldn't the loss of one generator cause them to send reinforcements to any of the other generators? Or repair teams or whatnot, anyways?
no. Not if it just shuts down for no apparent reason.
You don't think they would be suspicious?
Why would they if no alarms are sound, they're not under attack, no one knows they're coming to attack this planet from the Republic? Why would they be suspicious of anyone? There's just a malfunction with one of the reactors and they need to get the backup power on. And whoever was in charge of maintenance on the ship is going to have their head removed.
Well, yes, if video gets out that there was saboteurs on board the ship, but if we've already knocked out the communications before that, so we'd have to you'd have to remain hidden before then,
Well,
obviously.
the
but-
point is, we don't want the ship. We don't want communications. We don't want this ship to be aware of anything going on. If that happens if I'm caught before the jamming begins and before I shut down the reactor, then we have a problem.
Well, yeah, we're talking about backup after the communication, like needing backup and like once the communications are down.
Well, here's the thing, that jammer is only powerful enough to block out personal communicators. It won't block out the ship's communications equipment.
No, that's
No,
the
no,
purpose.
that's the whole point. The whole point is to knock out their long-range communications.
The ship would be offline. Its long-range communication shouldn't function if it's offline.
Well, in case they get the power back up or whatnot, and if we knock it out first, then if anything suspicious starts happening or we get any other part of the plan fails, we can still maintain deception with the rest of the fleet, and they will still be leaderless and not move forward.
And you misheard me. When we hook up the freighters, they will be sending a signal from that ship, independent of the flagship. That that was Takaya's voice. Anyway, no, it'll disrupt the outer ships. It'll even disrupt the interior ship because the signal will be a conglomerate of all the fighters put together. Now we'll need all of them, but once the power goes down, if all things turn out the way they should, it'll look like some unknown EMP force knocked out the flagship and is now jamming their communications.
Either way, I don't want backup. The more people there are sneaking around, the more chances we're going to get caught.
Well, yeah. Do you know how to set heavy explosives?
Yes. Of course.
I was just checking. Well, I acquired some detonite and a timer from the store, and since you're the one going to sabotage the reactor, in case you can't do whatever it is you think you can do to drain it of its power, it might be wise to have that as a backup.
That would be a good idea.
Just don't lose it before then. And also, after this mission, I want it back if you don't need it.
Because nods.
And Ajax will pull it out, hand him the detonite and the timer.
Pakaz, are you hiding anything from Ayland?
No.
I'm
I don't
just
even
trying-
know what are you trying to find out so I can tell you.
Whether or not you actually know how to handle explosives, because you said you did. Ayland is like curious to know if you really do or don't.
No, he sounds perfectly confident. Like he really knows like he believes it.
Yeah, that of course. Just
Yeah, I've heard the of course before. That's why I'm checking.
I mean, setting that aside, from a player perspective, as long as you have mechanics as a trained skill, you're able to set explosives.
Yep, that's what I did. That's what I have. Anyway.
So it looks like we've got the party split then, and the plan. Everybody have comm links that we can link together to coordinate. Well, at least before we knock out the communications.
Pakaz pulls out his comm link.
Well, as soon as we knock out the communications, which is the first step.
Wait a minute, the jamming won't allow that. If it can jam ship's communications, it will jam all personal communicators as well. We won't be able to communicate with each other after the jamming goes up.
It's for before then. Or if the jamming field somehow goes down and we need to coordinate our escape.
I have one as well, so I can or at least let y'all know that jamming's going down, virus is being uploaded and whatnot. Whatever we decide, or however we decide to do it, we can tell you when
So-
things go boom.
So how it will go is you will signal us when you're ready, when you're ready to hit the jamming, and when the team is in place to get the admiral, they'll let us know, and then you'll hit the jamming, and I'll hit the generator.
And then we'll grab the admiral, lock the door, and make everyone think he's stuck in his quarters while we're really moving to extricate ourselves from the ship. While
So I
leaving
assume everyone
some messages.
trades communicator and stuff, and it gets everyone on the
Yep,
same
and-
channel or whatever.
If anyone needs a comlink, I have a spare. My helmet is built in with one.
It's funny. This is the first time Picasso's actually gotten other people's comlinks.
I think at least some of us already.
Everyone
Traded.
except for him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Picaz did.
So does anyone need a comlink?
Takaya taps your ear and Ramai shakes his head no.
All right. So I guess that's the plan. So now the rest of the plan is where do we get on board the ship and how we're getting on board, Ramai.
Okay, before that happens, Zariana, would this be a good place for a break? Because I really have to use the restroom.
Yep.
Understandable.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get to a break, but then stuff kept happening, so I was just like, I'll just wait till you guys are done.
Yeah, I figured I'd
And then,
suggest it when we
an
finalize
hour and a
the
half
plan.
later. An hour and a half later.
Well, we took
Yeah.
a long time to plan.
I mean, that's not a bad thing.
I mean, I don't think it'll be too long until you figure out where I got the information from. Anyways,
I mean,
took so
out
long.
of
I took
character
so
knowledge,
long
I
to
know.
think to get out of character.
Out of character, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it took so long for me to think about using that. But yeah, I will be back.
All right, pausing the recording.